Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's masterclass, BIM Project Success, Overcoming Challenges and Pitfalls. Thank you so much for joining us today. So in this session, we will explore the most common challenges in BIM adoption and discuss effective strategies to overcome them. We will focus on key topics such as resistance to change, data management issues, and interoperability. And we will also share actionable solutions to ensure BIM project success and fully harness its potential in the construction industry. I'm Thaisa Figueroa, Institutional Engagement Manager here at ZIGURAT, and it's a true pleasure for me to be with you today. So for those of you who may not know us, ZIGURAT is a global leader in online education with over 20 years of experience in e-learning. We offer cutting-edge master's and postgraduate programs in architecture, engineering, AI, and tech management, all designed to equip professionals with the skills they need to thrive in today's rapidly evolving industry. And we are proud to have a diverse and vibrant community of over 20,000 students from more than 120 countries. So I would like to make today's session more interactive. We want to hear from you now. So please tell us in the chat from which city are you joining us today and what do you hope to gain from this session? Let's make this a dynamic and engaging experience today, okay, guys? So keep going. Today's masterclass is closely connected to our Masters in Global BIM Management. This program prepares professionals to excel in international teams, exchanging feedbacks and information through each project cycle. So now I'd like to introduce Elena Senatorova, a career development and admission consultant, who will share why choosing ZIGURAT is an excellent decision for you, for your professional growth. And she will also provide an overview of our Masters in Global BIM Management and explain how this program can help you develop the skills needed to succeed in the rapidly evolving field of BIM. So Elena, thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thaisa. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this exclusive masterclass. It is a truly pleasure to have you all here today. So I hope you are people from very different countries, and I would like to thank you for joining us, first of all, as today we introduce you to the Global BIM Management Master Program, one of the most renowned BIM programs worldwide. You know that the construction industry now is undergoing profound digital transformation. Building information modeling is at the core of this change. So companies worldwide are seeking for professionals who not only understand BIM, but also can lead and implement it effectively. So that's exactly what this master program is designed for, to keep you with the most in-demand skills, cutting-edge methodologies and strategies to become a top-tier BIM professional. So, Thaisa, go to this first slide. Okay, so the program spans 12 months and will officially start on April 28th. It's structured in 5 blocks where you go through the different phases of the project. You'll be learning about many different things, BIM processes, tools, strategies, throughout the entire life cycle. Okay, so you'll explore, first of all, latest tools and methodologies in the BIM technology, then BIM implementation across various disciplines, advanced project coordination and BIM integration, managing the multidisciplinary teams, data flows, digital transformation strategies. Okay, so basically, under the master program, you will immerse yourself in a disruptive curriculum that bridges theory with the real-world applications, providing you with a very practical expertise and industry-ready knowledge. Okay, so all these elements come together to prepare you for the leadership roles in the BIM implementation, consultancy, and management. Okay, our school is recognized for its excellence in BIM education, This program is accredited by leading institutions like University of Barcelona, the Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologies, and Building Transformations. Okay, the program is perfectly aligned also with an international standards, ensuring that your credentials are valued and respected across the industry. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, Thaisa. Now, maybe some of you still might be wondering why ZIGURAT. And here you can find the key reasons why we are ranked among the top BIM programs worldwide. So first of all, our curriculum goes beyond the theory, focusing on the practical, high-level project coordination and the seamless integration of the BIM workflows, something that you do throughout the real project simulation during all the studying year. Then you'll gain a real-world experience by working on projects based on actual industry challenges. That is also very important, ensuring that you develop job-ready skills. And you'll be learning directly from the leading BIM experts who bring their professional expertise to the classroom, because all our professors are practitioners in the industry. Flexible learning, because we have an online format that allows you to study from anywhere in the world, while being a part of the truly international learning environment at the same time. You will connect and collaborate with the peers from different countries and companies, at the same time expanding your professional network globally. And the career opportunities, whether you are looking to advance in your current role or explore new opportunities, this master program provides with the skills, connections, and recognition to take your career to the next level. Okay, so basically, if we go to the next slide, Thaisa, regarding the career opportunities, the last one. Okay, so here you can see this program opens doors to the top leadership positions, such as a BIM manager, for example, when you oversee the BIM processes within an organization, ensuring the seamless implementation, optimization of the digital workflows, or BIM consultant, advising the firms on BIM adoption, strategy development, and the best practices to enhance efficiency and project coordination, or position of the BIM director, leading the transformation across the enterprise, BIM transformation, setting the digital vision, ensuring the strategic integration at all levels. So today we have a very special guest here with us, our new director, who will provide you with deeper insights into the program and what you can expect from this transformative learning experience. Enjoy
Thank
this
you,
session.
Elena. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. So now we are honored to welcome Vicki Reynolds, a leading voice in the BIM industry. So Vicki is technical director for digital states at One Creative Environments. She's also our program director of the ZIGURAT Global Masters in BIM Management. And Vicki is also part of the executive leadership team for Women in BIM and a NIMA ambassador. Today, Vicki will unpack critical challenges such as resistance to change, data management, and interoperability, offering practical solutions to drive BIM project success. So for the audience, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat during the session, and we will address them during the Q&A at the end of the session, okay? Vicki, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here, and welcome everybody. Just give me 1 second while I share my screen with you all. There we go. So hopefully that's visible there. So that was a very good introduction. I won't go over it all again, but I will just as you can see, my headshots are very out of date. I look a lot fresher faced in those, but I'm reluctant to replace them because because they're nice. But it's an opportunity now for me to explain a little bit about what Technical Director of Digital Estates at One Creative is. So we work in a two-way data connectivity scenario. Some people may call it a digital twin, where a physical and a virtual environment communicate and talk to each other. So that's my current role. As mentioned, I'm a strategic advisor at the moment for Women in BIM. I've been part of the executive team there for a long time and was the global vice chair for many years. We aim to bring women into the digital construction industry, help promote them in BIM, and retain them, very importantly, in the industry once they're here. We have a network of thousands of people across the globe, and also a very good set of male allies as well. I'm on the digital advisory panel for the CIOB, advising on content and resources that they should make available for the construction industry in the UK. So that's the Chartered Institute of Building. And I'm on the back advisory panel for the Golden Thread of Information. So the Golden Thread in the UK is the maintenance of information to do with fire and structural safety for high-risk, high-rise buildings, going all the way from planning all the way through to decommissioning. And as mentioned, I'm a NEMA ambassador. So I've held roles in document control, information management, BIM coordination, BIM management, head of digital, and chief technology officer. So I showing my age here, but I have worked with pen, paper, and filing cabinets, seen that move on to 2D information and then extended into 3D information. So I have seen it all and experienced a lot of the challenges and pitfalls in real time. So some of the challenges here are recurring across all different methods of technical delivery. So these are things that have been considered, overcome, and reignited through all of the different technology developments in the construction industry. And so they include things like confusions around what a common data environment is, the CDEs, costs, always a factor in developing new processes and bringing in new technology, skills and training, not only with your internal team, but your external stakeholders, coordination and collaboration, and more freshly on the agenda, data security. So this is something that only became particularly noticeable recently. It's always been relevant, but due to the nature of the way that we work now, how online we are, how accessible information and data is, the risks are considerably higher and it needs to be higher up on the agenda. So I'm going to talk through each of these one by one. In 40 minutes, I'm not going to be able to get into a great amount of detail, but hopefully I will be able to give you some guidance, tips, starters for 10 on how to overcome these in your project environments, also within the organizations that you're working in. So, a common data environment. It's a platform or collaborative space, for information. And what it is a central repository where project information is housed. It's a single source of information. So what that means is everybody in the project knows where to go to get information that is most up to date and exists in one place. So information might be updated in multiple different sources, but it's a collaborative understanding where to go to get the most up-to-date information on a project for delivery, and that will be in your common data environment. It's a collaborative environment. So you may have systems in-house, your own document management systems in your own organizations, and that's perfectly fine. However, the common data environment is that project environment that's based on collaboration. It's shared information and data across a project team. It is technology to support a process. So you have a BIM process, you bring in the tools and the appropriate platforms to support that. One thing that we see recurring in the construction industry is that people identify a technology and then they try to build a process around it, which is a difficult way of working. It's often costly, it's not very efficient. So a common data environment should only be brought in after you know what process you would like to use to deliver BIM on your project. So a common data environment isn't just for models, it's for all project information. It's not a product, it's not something that can be sold to you. It is not a single platform or software. It is an ecosystem of multiple different platforms, multiple different softwares, anywhere essentially that project information or data is created and shared forms part of your common data environment ecosystem. And that all needs to be documented in your BIM execution plan. Now, if you have an unclear common data environment definition and strategy, that'll create ambiguity and it will affect things like data security. So if people aren't completely clear on how they access information, where information should be saved and stored in a project, and where the latest revisions are, it leads to scenarios where people are dealing with old information, revisions get lost, obviously security is compromised, and you end up with information being stored, saved all over the place. So it's really important at the very beginning of a project to determine this is where we will be storing our information that is relational to the project, this is who will have access, and this is how we manage our revision and our version strategy. So that all forms part of what a common data environment is. Now, this is a difficult one because sometimes you will have influence, sometimes you won't around this factor. So you may go into an organization where BIM is embedded, the benefits of BIM are fully understood, and the same for digital transformation and progression. And therefore you come in, you deliver BIM management as your role, and you're never really asked to justify what you do. And that's fantastic. In some scenarios, you'll go into an organization where it's an emerging process, or you may be brought in because it's a client requirement on one project. It's not necessarily embedded as a way of working in the organization you're in. So you have to then sell the case or put a case study together for your organization. And the best way to do a cost analysis is phased implementation. So you can choose small projects or small sections of your business that are going to become digitally enabled and consider how to bring in BIM and digital advancement specifically for those areas, all the while documenting the progress and the benefits of that. And then developing cost benefit analysis. So this is something that should always be at the back of your mind anyway, because you will always come across situations where you have to justify what you're doing and how and why. And so whenever you're bringing in new tools or new ways of working, you should be capturing case studies, highlighting cost savings, understanding the efficiency that you're bringing in, and considering things like reduced rework and greater efficiencies for processes that lead to return on an initial investment. So all of that should be captured as you go. And also, when we're looking at implementing BIM, we can always look to government and industry support. So you can leverage government incentives, grants, industry support programs to help offset initial costs. And staying informed about all of these available resources is really beneficial. Now, skills and training, I've broken this into two sections. We have internal skills. So the most important thing when you're trying to build skills, new skills within an organization, is to get senior level buy-in. So I had a situation with a contractor in the UK where we decided that we were going to become a BIM first organization. Being a contractor, that meant that we were proposing that all takeoffs were done from a model environment, design reviews were done in 3D, that our whole project team was digitally enabled and could use BIM as its first point of reference for any roles that they were undertaking. Now, this all sounded great. We went and got senior buy-in, we thought, initially, and they said, yep, off you go, do whatever you need to do. We started to speak to all of the individual teams, talking about how they can upskill the individuals and training plans to put in place. And we got a lot of head nodding, but not a lot of action. And so we went back to the senior team and said, look, these are the benefits that we could be getting. We're not getting them because the teams aren't engaging. And that's when the senior leadership team, the C-suite, spoke to the team leaders on our behalf. And we suddenly saw an increased buy-in from the business because it was coming from the top down. And building it into things like performance reviews can really help. So we built into our cost managers' performance reviews that they should be able to pull schedules and pull cost information from a model. We built in for our legal team that they would attend CPD sessions on the effects of BIM on legal and contracts in the construction industry. And all of this led to a general upskilling across the whole environment, which then meant when we started to put ourselves out there in tender responses, saying that we were a fully BIM-enabled organisation and we stopped adding additional cost for the delivery of BIM, we won more work and it was a very smooth and efficient process. Offer different formats of training. So some people learn in different ways to others. So speak to your teams and say, right, what specifically do you need? Do you want lunch and learns? Do you want big, long, full day sessions? Do you want 1 hour snippets? Do you want recorded information or do you want live training? And see if you can work around the requirements of each individual team. Different types of people work in different delivery teams. So it's important to support that wherever possible. And you should be making your training sessions short where possible. Anything after about an hour, people tend to switch off or disengage. You should make them interactive, ask people questions, get them actually operating in a model environment and doing the work themselves in real time, and relevant as well. Make sure that any training that you give is relevant for the individuals that are receiving the training. So don't go into the details of Revit when you're talking to your senior leadership team or cost managers or legal. Make sure that it's something that's going to affect them, something that's relevant to their role, something that they're interested in. Now, when you're in a project environment, it's a slightly different scenario. So sometimes you're leading a team who don't always have the skills that you would need or expect from a BIM project team. So it's very important to make your expectations very clear at the offset. Now this, if you're brought in early enough, should form part of your BIM execution plan. And ultimately, you need to be saying from the very beginning, right, these are the formats that we're going to work in. This is our collaboration process. And these are the platforms that I need you to be competent in. And these are the processes that I need you to understand. That will allow the teams to go off and upskill and prepare themselves for project delivery very early on. Get the client backing, much like getting senior leadership backing. If you're making change in an organization, getting the client backing in a project environment is absolutely critical. So if you have written things into your BIM execution plan and you're attempting to deliver processes that the client doesn't understand or isn't interested in, then it's very easy for your team to go back to the client and make a case that they don't understand why they're having to do this, that it's inefficient, that it's wasting time. So you really need to get in there first and make sure the client understands the benefits of the policies and processes that you're putting in place. And a really important one, only offer training that's in your remit. So as a manager or a coordinator, you should really be providing support around things like, you can say, this is how I'm going to be doing clash detection, and therefore this is how you can prepare for that. You can give sessions training on things like your coordination platforms and your clash detection platforms, but you shouldn't be teaching a designer, for instance, how to design in Revit. So it's really important that you stick to your remit. Otherwise, that scope creep will happen and you become accountable then for other people's skills. Suggest external suppliers. So when I was working in BIM management, I would always have a list of good training courses and good training providers that I knew of, so that if somebody comes to me and says, you've written this into the BIM execution plan, I don't know how to deliver it, or we're struggling here, we're struggling there, you can be supportive and say, okay, here's a resource, here's something for you to look at, or somewhere for you to go to for the support, but I can't offer that myself. So then we move into the meaty stuff. Coordination and collaboration. This is a point of contention in many BIM projects, and ultimately preaching to the converted, but it's critical that you have a dedicated information manager or a BIM manager. So I have worked on projects before where there has been a BIM manager for every stakeholder, but there hasn't been a client representative or an overall project BIM coordinator or manager who is in charge of the federated model environment. So that is where all of the multiple different disciplines, all of the models are pulled together in an environment that can be coordinated and that the analysis can take place in. So you need somebody accountable and responsible for that. In some geographical regions, it's called an information manager. In some, it's called a BIM manager. And you need to use your BIM execution plan to really clearly define roles and responsibilities. You have to determine not only which organizations are responsible for which outputs and outcomes, but specifically down to roles as well, and what you expect from each individual in the project. And that should relate directly to the BIM uses. This is something that I see get missed out quite a lot. So first and foremost, you need to determine what the BIM will be used for. So which areas of the construction process, the design process, will the model be relied upon for? And this should help you to define the roles and responsibilities, the information that you need, the level of detail that you need, what file formats you need as well. So all of that is really critical, which then will help you determine the software that you will be using in the project, which will allow your supply chain to prepare, make sure that they've got the skills in that software. It will also help you consider things then like interoperability. And do you need specific exchange formats like IFC to be able to transfer data from one system to another? And that consideration, that ecosystem, all has to be considered and documented in your BIM execution plan. And that all forms part of your data management protocols. You need to document a version control method. So when information should be revised, how it should be revised, how your revisions and versions should be labeled. Now, there is advice and support on how to do this in the ISO 19650 suite of documents, which is the UK BIM Alliance, formerly NEMA's information management suite of documents. And that will allow people to understand that the information they're working with is the most recent, and to ensure that nobody is working with out of date information, or worst case scenario, two different parties are working on two different versions of information. And very importantly, often overlooked, meeting schedules. How often will you hold your coordination meetings? Who needs to be involved? What will be covered in each meeting? All of this needs to be documented in your BIM execution plan. And critically, that needs to be treated as an evolving policy. So the BIM execution plan becomes almost like the Bible for delivery. Nothing happens in delivery unless it is well documented in the plan. the plan is received by everybody, it's understood by everybody, and it's continuously reviewed. So every time you bring on a new stakeholder or supplier in the project process, you will be updating your BIM execution plan to include their roles and responsibilities, the platforms that they're working in, how their information will integrate with other people's, and then any changes to the coordination process. So you might say this party and this party will coordinate their information first, they'll federate that, and then that then will be coordinated and federated with the wider information model for the wider team. So all of that will grow and be amended, be changed as the project progresses. It's really important not to have an ego around this stuff as well. You will create a BIM execution plan. Some of it won't work. Some of it will be wrong. And it's very important to identify struggles and changes throughout the BIM process and amend your process documentation accordingly. And this is the one that often gets missed out. It's adherence to the BIM execution plan being written into contracts. So when you are procuring in your tender documentation, you should include an appendix at the very least to the contracts to say that the BIM execution plan will be adhered to by all project participants, that it is an evolving document, and that it is part of the deliverables for the project team. And then last but not least, data security. So data security is the backbone of information management. And BIM itself is not necessarily building information modeling. It needs to be considered as better information management. And a big underpinning factor of information management in general is how to maintain the integrity and the safety of that information. So as an example, I worked on a project a while ago where it's very sensitive information. The asset that we were delivering was incredibly sensitive. It was a hotel in which some very high profile people were likely to be staying. And at one point, a case study was created and shared and released online, findable on Google. And some of the screenshots of the BIM model in there included information about key infrastructure in and around that building. So if a malicious actor wanted to gain access to the building, they'd be able to see where all the entrances and exits were. They'd be able to see the fire escapes. They could see the utilities running into that building. All of that is information that you might not consider to be sensitive when you're creating things like case studies and information about the project. So the only way to ensure information security at all levels is to embed an awareness of data security across your whole organization. Now, hopefully you will have IT managers and maybe even cybersecurity managers in your organization who are doing things like delivering regular training on phishing, on the latest in hacking technology and how to protect information, sensitive and confidential information for your organization. But in some companies, you don't have that. And as one of the key conduits of information, you take on some of that responsibility to ensure that anybody dealing with that data and information understands the importance of keeping it safe and secure. It's really important to look at industry standards and recommendations. There is ISO 19650 Part 5, which is part of the UK BIM framework, which is it addresses the steps required to create and cultivate an appropriate and proportionate security mindset and a culture of security across an organization with access to sensitive information. So it includes things like the need to monitor and how to deliver audits on compliance for information security. So it's a really good place to start. And something that you should be doing as part of your role as a BIM information manager, which is often overlooked, is regularly completing risk assessments on the projects that you're working on and the project teams. So you should be holding workshops to identify any vulnerabilities and plan how to mitigate those. So I'll talk about how to create a risk statement in a minute, but ultimately you need to be looking at your BIM execution plan, where information is stored, how it's stored, who has access to it, and how that is vulnerable and how it can be accessed or could become vulnerable to a malicious actor. And it's really important to maintain that in something like a risk register so that you can regularly review it. And as things change, you can change the risk profiles and continually review the vulnerability of the information that you're storing and saving. This is something that's overlooked, but definitely falls into the remit of a BIM information manager. So part of a risk statement would be identifying there is a risk that someone could do this by doing this, and the result would be this consequence. So an example would be there's a risk that cyber criminals could use a phishing attack by exploiting poor security awareness to access BIM information, resulting in an asset's security being compromised. And this then is a tangible statement that can be reviewed and mitigated. It's important that your client is aware of all these risks. The reality of a risk register is that not all risks are completely mitigated, they're managed. And so having your client aware of the risks around their project data allows them to be part of the conversation. It allows them to understand what you're doing and that you're doing the best that you possibly can to keep their data safe. And it means that if there is an incident, then it's something that you can work together to mitigate and resolve. Also, the client is often one of your biggest risk factors because they have access to everything. They don't necessarily have good policies and processes in place internally. And they may be sharing information with third parties that you don't know about at all. So it's very, very important to make sure that you've documented a good risk process, you're aware of the vulnerabilities, and that you're educating those around you about them as well. So we've covered lots of different risks and potential vulnerabilities and pitfalls. Hopefully I've given you some opportunities for improvement and some ideas on how to mitigate those items. But ultimately, the difficulty with BIM is that every instance is different. So I could give you very specific examples and they may never be relevant to you in your career. So it's really important as a BIM manager that you have flexibility, you have confidence, and you always go back to the fundamentals for solid delivery, which is document your process, communicate your process, continually review and update your process, and make sure that in your delivery, you are following that process. And with that, you really should be on a much stronger footing to deliver the best possible BIM that you can. So that's the end of the presentation. If anybody's got any questions, I would be very happy to take them.
Perfect. Thank you, Vicky. Let me get back my screen now. And let's go to the questions. I saw one here that was, I would like to know about tools you have integrated for the cost-benefit analysis.
Sorry, what was the question?
Someone would to know which tools did you use it to integrated for the cost-benefit analysis?
Okay, so we used Costex. In our organization, there are lots of different solutions out there, but Costex at the time we used an API, I think, to bring the model information into Costex to then take things like bills of quantities and take schedules out from that. And that was really, really useful. It's a very easy to use tool that our cost management team had experience with already. So being able to integrate the process into that was very beneficial for us.
Perfect. Thank you, Vicky. And another question is, could you please take an example of live project that's in design stage and explain that data security is managed and controlled?
So I haven't got a project to hand right now that is in the design stage that I can give you information about. But an example of how to manage data security in the design stage would be to really focus on the federation environment. So you can only control what you can control, which at design stage is at the point of sharing that design information into the collaboration environment or the common data environment. So it's important to have policies around federation, and also a lot of it is around your biggest weakness really are the people. So understanding that different stakeholders will suddenly have access to other people's information, and that they are as responsible for that information as they are for their own information. Really, it's the same throughout the whole project lifecycle, but that is how I would go about it there. In fact, it would be something that in coordination meetings, I would have an item on the agenda for information security, and just bring up any risks that are identified or any concerns that anybody has about how information is being shared and stored.
Perfect, Vicky. I saw one more. Which main pitfalls do you see in BIM management in government or public organizations?
The biggest is out of date policy on the client side. So my biggest challenge when working on government projects was that the internal government policy dictated certain things that didn't really lend themselves to a BIM environment. So how they wanted information shared, how they would allow their data to be stored, things like that, made it really difficult for us to work in a collaborative environment. And some of that policy is difficult to be changed because it comes from much higher up in the government kind of infrastructure. I would also say that the government mandate in the UK caused some issues rather than solved some issues for us. So in 2016, the UK government mandated that all government projects should be delivered using BIM. But what they didn't do was define what they meant by using BIM. And so a lot of organizations then hired a BIM manager, put them in a little room in the corner, and asked them to develop models that were representative of the project. And they were then able to say to the client, look, we've got models, but the models weren't being used for anything. They were often out of date, and they didn't relate in any way to the project environment. And that then became the foundation of bad practice that a lot of other BIM mimicked. So rather than kind of allowing BIM to grow within project teams and having clear kind of use cases, so here's our problem and this is how BIM can solve it, this is our use case and this is how we're going to solve it, it was just, right, we have to do BIM, we don't know what that is, we don't know what problems we're solving, so let's just make it a discipline in its own right. And that was another misunderstanding in the early days. It was that BIM was its own discipline, it was its own thing, whereas it's actually it's information management. It's better information management across the whole project. It has to be embedded into every discipline and every business unit. So yeah, that's the difficulty with working with government, and also money. Money is far less easily free-flowing than it is with private clients.
Yeah. Perfect, Vicky. I would ask you if you want to leave a message for our audience, and then we will finish this session. If you want to leave a message.
Yeah. It can be very daunting sometimes to look at BIM in the wild. So you may go on LinkedIn and see lots of posts about what BIM is and what BIM isn't, and the use of IFC, and people get very stuck in the weeds sometimes. And it's quite an inflammatory conversation sometimes. So you see people arguing and disagreeing about what it is and what it isn't and how to do it best. Ultimately, if you look at your problem statements and you resolve them using your models and BIM, then you are doing BIM. Don't worry about it. You don't have to get caught in those conversations that may be confusing or difficult. I would say sometimes just getting your head down and doing your job is much more beneficial. Yeah, just be confident in what you're doing. If you constantly bring it back to what am I trying to achieve and how do I build a process around that, rather than what does this person over here do, what is this person saying, what does LinkedIn tell me, then you're much more likely to have success.
Perfect, Vicky. So a huge thank you to you for sharing your valuable insights and expertise with us today. And of course, thank you to all of you that join us today. We hope this session has provided you with the tools to overcome common BIM challenges and achieve greater project success. Thank you, Vic. Thank you a lot. So hope to see you soon. And bye-bye to all. Take care and see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody.